This was my house when I bought it last month. It was pretty dated with no unique features, and it sat on this wall that separated the kitchen from the living room. So I decided to demolish everything and build something from nothing. And this is my house now. Last week I showed you how I built the guts of the kitchen. So now I'm going to show you how I built the island and the pantry from scratch. I did all of this on my own, and trust me, if I can do it, you could definitely do it too. I think the hardest part about beginning a project like this is wrapping your mind around all the material you need and how you're gonna get it to your house. But then I realized you can just ask someone at the hardware store to help you load your wood, and they will every time. So once it's inside your house, it starts to feel a little less intimidating and way more fun. I built everything out of 2x4s, which I cut in half. So to start the island, I built a basic frame for the countertop to sit on, and then I built the bottom frame. From there, I moved on to the legs, which I screwed into the bottom frame and then placed the top frame onto that. This gave me the main structure of the frame, and I realized it was practically done. I was making the mistake of over planning the design and drawing out each piece of wood that I'd need. This started to confuse me and slow down my process, so I realized it's much more productive to just start with a few pieces and go from there. So then I added a few posts for the shelves to lay on, and from there I just had to add some reinforcements. This is kind of what I mean about over planning. It's really just about adding more wood to the structure so that it becomes more solid and heavy duty. A lot of the time, wood is warped, so not every piece of a diagram is perfectly accurate. A lot of the time, one piece might be 1/8 of an inch longer than the other. Sometimes you just have to work in sections and go from there. So it's best to just measure and cut as you go along. Once the frame was done, I simply measured for the side panels and cut those out of plywood and screwed them on. I'm finding the hardest part about building things is taking the time to sand, stain, and seal. It takes about the same amount of time to do that as it does to build everything. They do offer pre-sanded wood, but it's about double the cost, and I just can't justify spending it when I know I can do it myself. So once that was done, I stained the butcher block countertop and screwed it into the frame, and the island was complete. The pantry was a lot trickier because I had to screw the wood together while the frame was pushed up against the wall. So I realized I would have to assemble the back of the frame first and then stand it up into place, and then assemble the front of the frame and then stand that up into place, and then screw the two frames together. To my shock and amazement, everything fit together and squeezed into place perfectly. I had to use a hammer to shove it into place so it's nice and snug. It was really tight, it's not going anywhere. Then I just screwed the frame into the studs behind the drywall. I added a few shelf supports to the wall, which in hindsight, I probably should have just added extra framing for this, but whatever. Then I cut the shelves out of 1/2-inch plywood and added them to the frame. My original plan was to have this whole thing be 2 giant pantries, but once I saw how big the pantry was after getting the frame up, I decided to build a coffee bar on the right side. So I removed one of the sections of the shelving and used some hardboard to section out the bar and divide the shelves. Once I got everything stained, I could really see it coming together, which is always really exciting. I needed some doors, and I knew I wanted them to have some transparency because this was looking like a lot of wood, and I just wanted to break it up a little bit. I love the look of fluted glass, but I had no idea how to find custom panels. So I was shopping at the hardware store and I saw this polycarbonate roofing material. It kind of looked exactly like it, so I decided to just go for it and experiment a bit. I used tongue and groove wood panels to create the doors by sawing off the tongue part and using steel brackets to secure the frame. Then I slid the polycarbonate into the grooves and secured the bottom frame, and then used a dowel rod for the door handles. Then I just needed cabinet doors, which I whipped up using plywood during one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen. Once I got the doors attached, I made some 4-inch whitewash wood tiles, similar to what I used for the kitchen's backsplash. I added those in a brick pattern, painted on a clear gloss sealer, and caulked the seams. Then I added some 1-inch framing to the inside corners for a finishing touch. I went to town and found this mirror at a department store, and I added that to the center back wall and then used a hole saw to cut some openings for the coffee maker wires. I added a new espresso machine, a coffee pot, and an electric kettle, and had some fun adding some plants and candles and a lantern that I thrifted and some hanging coffee mugs. It's taken a few days to realize the kitchen is actually done. It's kind of all I've been thinking about, and it's surreal that I just don't have to think about it anymore. I need to handle my floors next. I just haven't been able to decide what I want to do with them. I need to get them done though, because if I don't, I'll have to install the floors around all of my future projects, which is silly. So say a prayer that I make a decision on that soon. The funny part about this is that I was so exhausted by the time this was over that I was too tired to cook anything, so I took myself out on a well-deserved date. I just kept ordering food and eating my feelings, and I can't wait to do it again. Taking risks is a bit of a roller coaster of excitement and fear, especially when you're thinking about doing it alone. The what ifs start piling up. What if I mess up? What if I get lost? But there's something magical about taking those risks on your own. It's scary, but it's also where you find out what you're really made of. When you decide to push past the fear and take that leap, you start figuring things out and overcoming challenges, and you start trusting yourself more. It's kind of like a victory over your own doubts. It's not just about reaching the goal, it's about proving to yourself that you can handle anything. There's this incredible strength that comes out when you face challenges on your own terms. So take those risks and stare down your fears and savor the feeling of accomplishment waiting for you on the other side, because that's where you truly discover the greatness within yourself.